Good morning. That's a little better. How are you all? Welcome to our Around the Valuation World morning show here from the annual conference of NACVA and the CTI. Thanks for joining us this morning. And for those of you who are joining us online, good morning. It's a wonderful day here in Salt Lake City, the first full day of our conference. And I'm joined by Greg Caruso, who is the senior editor of the Around the Valuation World show. Generally, this show is broadcast to all NACVA members monthly. Was it the third Monday of every month?
Third Monday of the month, absolutely.
It's a great show for those of you who are joining us online, and those of you who are here. It's a free member benefit. As part of your Economist subscription, you are able to view the 2-hour webcast every month where Greg and the team of our members discuss current trends and topics and updates in the profession to keep you current on all the things that are happening. So if you haven't been watching the Around the Valuation World show every month, we ask you to please do so. There's a lot of great topics that are covered. This morning, we will be spending some time with Pam Bailey, who is the prior executive director for NACVA for 23 years. She helped pioneer the organization. She retired last summer. We're super glad to have her back with us here. Also, Jonathan Bailey. Jonathan Jackson. I'm merging the two of them. I don't want either of them to leave our organization, obviously. But Jonathan Jackson, we brought him on board last summer. He's been with the organization almost a year now. And so we'll talk with the both of them about the great things that we have in store for the association. And we'll start by celebrating Pam. Hi, Pam.
Good morning.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you.
Exactly. So when I started at NACVA 22 years ago, Pam was the right hand to Parnell Black, who's our CEO. And in the early years, when the organization had one certification, the CVA, focused only on CPAs at the time, Pam was very involved with a lot of the things that are in place with the organization and still exist now. Some of the things, Pam, that you helped get started with us, let's maybe start and talk about let's talk about NACVA.
Oh, gosh.
One of the most important things to our members is CPE, obviously, and achieving certification through NACVA was a big deal. What was that like, and talk about why the association made that decision?
Initially, Parnell Black and Bob Green, who originally formed NACVA, had that challenge of getting authorization through the National Association of State Boards of Accountancy. And we needed to have that accreditation in order to get approval for CPE. And the first week of my employment, Parnell said, you need to get this approval. And I went, the first week? And I'm like, I have no clue what valuation is. I have no clue what NACVA is. And he says, if you can do that, you're in. And I'm like, okay. So I'm like reading up on what NACVA is, and okay, I need to get approval for all these courses, which was the training center course. And so it's like, whatever it takes, go get approval. So I just started filing, and Bob and Parnell had been trying to get approval for a year and a half. They'd been working on this. Okay, so that's my first job in the first week, get approval. You've been trying this for a year and a half, and now this is my first job. Okay, so I just dug my heels in. I got approval in 1 week.
Oh, wow.
And so, okay, I'm in. I got a job.
Yeah. Well, it's super critical, obviously. Yeah. And we appreciate that for the association. Another one of the great things I know you helped achieve for the NACVA was establishing our state chapters.
Yeah.
and talk about why that was important at that time and some of the things that you helped put into place to help the networking with our members on the state level.
State chapters was a huge undertaking. When I realized that not only offering education through the training centers was important, I felt that education locally was important. You needed additional education locally that was also affordable, but the camaraderie between members locally was also important, was to get to know the members and kind of share opportunities and ideas locally. And I recruited Nancy Galt to kind of head up that part of state chapters, and so that she could help organize some of those meetings. And we acquired some state chapter presidents at that time to head each of those states and get meetings together and acquire some local education. But I thought it was so good to get members together and help share ideas and so forth. That was a huge undertaking, but it was really a great opportunity for everybody to network and get local education that was affordable.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be really a great opportunity.
Jonathan, that's one of the areas that you've really gotten involved in since you started. Talk about some of the things that you have going with the state chapters now and some of the great programs and leaders that are coming into the state chapter arena.
Certainly, we're very excited about our state chapter program. It's a wonderful opportunity for us to expand our reach across the United States and to develop more of a community feel with our organization. And so we have, of course, carried on the great work of Pam with the state chapters, and we have so many great leaders within our state chapters, state chapter presidents, whatnot, and that have served for a while, and it's been great to get to know them and encourage them and see the great work they're doing in their individual states. Something that we're hoping to accomplish and that we've already implemented is we piloted a state chapter day.
Yeah.
And for this conference, we invited our state chapters to tap into this conference and to earn continuing education credits from the comfort of their own home or their office. And so we had several people participate and are participating in this conference. And so we hope to expand that and really see that take off at our annual conference.
Are there any state chapter presidents in the audience? I know. Yes, David Feltz from Utah, our home state. There's some others that I know have been involved in our state chat. Greg Caruso, of course, and a couple others. But we're really excited about the pioneering work that you did with our state chapters and Jonathan picking up that mantle. Another wonderful thing that you did for the organization that really attests to the quality and the commitment to excellence for credentialing is that NACVA's CVA credential has been accredited by the National Commission for Certifying Agencies, the division of the Institute for Credentialing Excellence. The CVA accreditation was renewed this last year, actually, in 2018, and for 15 years has been accredited by this organization. And Pam, you were very involved in that. Can you tell us about why that was important for the association and a bit of the rigorous work that goes into applying and maintaining that certification? If you can remember all that work you did.
That was huge undertaking. I think that took us 7 years to get that accreditation. And I'm not sure I can share really what that entailed, but we felt that it was valuable not only for our members, but to show the value of what your credential really truly means, is to show the level of what that credential stands for. Above all others is to certify the credential and to show that it has gone through rigorous training itself, and it's been through the mill. That organization requires such a level of excellence that it has its own standards that it has to meet. And it isn't just the members, the credential itself has to set a certain level of excellence. And it shows the value of your credential. And you can use that on the witness stand. And above all others, you can't say that about your other credentials necessarily. So we felt that that was worth going through 7 years of proving, application, proving that our credential has that. And I felt that it was worthwhile, but it took a lot of doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To earn that certification means that the association submits all the processes for the body of knowledge for the CVA, the examinations for the CVA.
On a continual basis.
On a continual basis.
Every year. It goes through its own recertification every year.
The candidates who take the training, we have a psychometrician, which is a statistician, reviews the results from all the examinations. So we know in real time if there are areas within the body of knowledge where the candidates are not passing a certain area. We can let our instructor teams know that these are areas that they need to spend more time on in training to the body of knowledge to ensure that the candidates who take the test and pass it are fully understanding and comprehending the body of knowledge for business valuation. And our testing and our curriculum ties to that. And so going through that process validates the quality and excellence that goes into our credential.
True.
Jonathan is currently working with the association to also accredit the CVA with the American National Standards Institute, ANSI, which is another certifying body that accredits credentials. You just recently, or just about wrapping up that process. Talk a bit about that, Jonathan.
It's been a very interesting process. And like you mentioned before, with the NCCA accreditation, this is really an incredible thing that I don't think we really appreciate as much as we should. What it does is it adds so much credibility to what we provide to you as members. And it increases credibility. It increases the assurance that what you're getting is best practices, along with a quality assurance of the administration of what we're doing at headquarters. And it weaves through every member of our staff to provide that quality assurance. And so this ANSI accreditation is an upper echelon accreditation. I like to call it the Mount Everest of accreditations, because achieving both the NCCA and ANSI is really the Mount Everest. It is almost like a unicorn, because we would be the only organization of our kind to achieve both of these. So that's very exciting for our members, and it's something we should tout, and it's defendable, it's credible, and it should build confidence in our membership to have that.
Certainly, I'm certain that all of you are very proud of your CVA, but in our alphabet soup of credentials in the business valuation space, generally, the perception is generally that the CVA might not be as strong a credential as the others, but from a credentialing and testing and what goes into the training is certainly something that you should be able to boast. And to Pam's point, if you are involved in litigation and get challenged or asked about your CVA, one of the things you can say about it is that it is accredited by another organization for high standards and excellence in training and credentialing. Pam, what are maybe one of the most favorite memories you have of the association. You've done so much, from traveling to meetings. She was originally our on-site coordinator in the early years, and now here we are broadcasting and traveling around the globe, actually, with credentialing and training. What's one of your favorite memories of, or maybe some individuals that you really enjoyed working with from a member perspective?
I have so many. I enjoyed working with a lot of the boards and committees. In particular, gosh, I enjoyed the board elections process and such. What I liked is building members' careers and watching all of you succeed. That actually just meant a big part of my career was watching the success of all of you. That was inspiring to me. That made me proud to watch all of you succeed. And being able to see everyone get elected to boards and watching you volunteer. You volunteered your time. And I watched you and many of you succeed in your careers and step out, and sometimes it was a little scary, but watched you challenge yourselves and become keynote speakers, watched you become instructors and share who you were. And it was exciting to watch. It just made me very proud to be a part of this organization. And that's why I stayed for 23 years. It just made me want to be a part of this organization. And I was very proud to be a part of it. I had kind of a personal situation occur last year that made me question my own future. And I thought it was time that I stepped down, and a health challenge. And it was time for me to live my life. But I was just proud to be a part of this organization. And it's been an honor. It's truly been an honor. And I miss it. But I love retirement. Don't get me wrong.
Where are you now? Tell us a little bit about what you're doing in now.
I sort of don't miss the snow. Don't get me wrong. I loved Utah, but I'm in Lake Havasu, Arizona. I needed some sunshine. So I have family there, and I've enjoyed the water sports and skiing and boating, and I'm back by the beach and palm trees. So
Nice.
I've enjoyed retirement, I have to say.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, we miss you, Pam, and we have a surprise
you.
for you.
You do.
So, Chinda?
I don't need a surprise.
Well, you're surprised. You're going to be surprised. Thank you.
What? Oh, don't.
We are presenting you, Pam, with our Member Emeritus Award.
Oh.
And this is what the inscription says. I need my readers. Embrace these. For those of you who are younger than me, when your eyesight goes, embrace these. Just go for it. Buy real cool ones and put them everywhere.
I have those.
Do you? All right. National Association of Certified Evaluators and Analysts presents the Member Emeritus Award to Pam Bailey. This award is given to honor you for your contributions to the association of evolutionary significance. Without your past support, we can say the NACVA would not be where it is today. Your consistent and dependable support has come in many ways and at all levels of the association involvement. board, committee, instructing, mentoring, advising, wherever and whenever needed. NACVA is deeply indebted and wishes to endear you to the association forever by presenting you this prestigious award that comes with lifetime membership to the association. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
So with that, we really, really appreciate all that you've done for NACVA and will always hold you special.
Thank you.
And Jonathan, we're happy to have you on board
Yeah,
and look forward to the wonderful things that you'll help us achieve.
Thank you.
So Pam, thank you.
Thank you.
And congratulations.
Thank
and
you.
enjoy your retirement.
Thank
I
you.
will hope to join you soon.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll turn this next segment of Around the Valuation World over to Greg and Melissa Gregg, and who will be discussing, for those of you who did not attend the current update and valuation session yesterday, there were some great topics covered, and they'll give you highlights on that course. So Melissa, Greg, take
Thank
it
you.
away.
So how is everybody today? Good. You ready for a long valuation day, huh? It's going to be a great day. It certainly is. How many people were here last night for the cocktail party and dinners and all? Wasn't this a beautiful, beautiful place? That the courtyard last night, just magnificent. So, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning now.
Good morning now. Very good.
Everybody get their coffee? Everybody awake? We ready for a great day? So yesterday, was anybody in CUV? We call it CUV, Current Updates and Valuations, yesterday? Okay, so you had a great time, right? We talked about 4 different types of topics. I think that they were pretty entertaining and interesting, at least thought-provoking. And, you know, with changes that are happening, part of why we had change in the name of this conference is because there are so many things changing, and there are so many things that we kind of have to reevaluate what we've been doing for years. And it doesn't mean that we have to change everything, but it means we at least need to start to consider the impact of some of these different changes, the tax laws, different ways of looking at S-Corp, taxation and pass-through entities and all of these types of things. Part of the first information that we went through yesterday had to do with industry compliance. So some big cases. I don't know if you guys have all read the Cress v. United States. It dealt with some tax affecting of pass-through entities. And we really went into depth about the case, but you know, the highlights were it ended up that the judge approved the taxation of the pass-through entity, as well as kind of solidified on about a 27% discount for lack of marketability. So it's a very interesting case. Another thing that we worked on, or we presented, was how to start looking at the tax effects and how to start building, you know, the analysis for, is your company affected by any of these things? You know, the changes in leasing, the changes in the QBI, you know, what does this mean for my client, and does it have any ongoing ramifications? A lot of us have, I think, looked at historical earnings, capitalized historical earnings, and now we're having to look at, you know, do we need to project forward? What happens when these laws sunset? What impact does it have? And do we really have to look at forecasting each individual period, at least from a tax perspective, and, you know, what is involved in that.
Good.
You just want me to keep going?
No, I think actually, no. We actually, another one of the instructors, Ron Rudich, an old friend of mine. I'm half, maybe 3/4 in business valuation because of Ron. I was a business broker. I am a CPA and an attorney, but I was practicing as a business broker and ran into Ron, and he explained the world of valuation to me. And he now instructs in this course, and so we're glad you could be with us this morning.
My pleasure.
So I'm not exactly sure where you left off.
Come on, Greg, you're not paying attention. It's
It's
only 7:30.
I have lots of opinions on all these issues. I can
She was
assure
talking
you.
about the QBI
Yeah.
and litigation.
I'm just not sure if they're the right opinions, so I'm keeping my mouth shut for
Yes,
once.
no opinions, just keep it to the facts.
Yeah.
But we also talked about conclusion and calculation of values. And I think that there are lots of people that have strong opinions about the use of them, the use of calculation reports in litigation, conclusions of, you know, like how much work it takes. How do you, you know, some of the perspective, I think, if you really go down the path of litigation, is taking more control of the engagement. I know that there are times when the client will come in and say, well, I want something cheap. I just want a quick and dirty, back of the napkin, back of the envelope, whatever they call it.
Don't they want their number too?
And I think the number is like 1.25 million, you know. Even attorneys, I think that you have to start taking control. And in my perspective, you have to tell them what they don't know. And you have to explain to them that that is not maybe going to be appropriate for what they're doing. And the reality is you have to protect your own reputation. And I think that there's only one person that's going to protect your reputation, because an attorney, a client, they'll use you once, you'll tell them their number, and then they'll get rid of you because they know that you basically say whatever number they want. So you have to protect your reputation. And if it's not appropriate for that case, then you either need to walk away or you need to tell them what they don't know. And so there were some.
Well, on the opinion or conclusion versus
or calculation. Correct.
You know, I certainly am a big believer that, you know, that's an education process. And I don't do as much litigation, but in my world, it's very much a conversation. Because I do an awful lot of valuations for people who are intending to do M&A, and not necessarily with me. Usually when they come to me, they got an internal buyer. We're trying to figure out how to put that together. You know, my own view is, look, it takes a year to 18 months for most of these people to do it. I'm not sure if I do everything for an opinion today, we're going to have to redo it because you haven't even talked to these people yet. You're going to be a little surprised. They're going to be a little surprised. And then we may elevate it to an opinion as we get closer if they're having a hard time with the number.
Well, but I think the difficulty in litigation is that
litigation's
it's all
different.
discoverable. So
Yes.
you can't put on one hat of like, oh, I'm going to do a calculation, and then, you know, now we need a conclusion. At the point that you've released documents, you've had discussions,
Right.
you've indicated a value, and you haven't done all the work to understand if that value is even in the right realm.
Right.
I think you set yourself up for some serious issues.
I would think so.
And I think there's ways to work with clients. I see more of the calculation of value in a strategic setting. You know, when I'm hired by a company because there's a partner exiting or a partner entering, and they really don't need a full report. They just need some sanity. They need some starting point. They might not even agree to that number, but it's a negotiating starting point. But I think you still have to protect yourself, you know, how you label it, how you put it together, and the realms that you're comfortable
in the M&A, we often will even, again, because that's what we're often called into for on the valuation work is how do we do this? We'll, you know, instead of writing this gigantic report on my entire thought process so you can duplicate it, we will try to explain to him, here's a starting point value. This is how we got there. And here's how people actually do this. Again, it may be 5 bullet points. We're not drilling down, but again, so they can, and we emphasize this is for you to start your conversation. This, you know, this is not the final, depending on how the terms work. And
sometimes they're
vary
really
it.
intelligent buyers and they're looking at acquisitions and they just want, you know, like they have in their head where they think the numbers are. They need somebody to come in and look at it from a different perspective. I think that you know, from a reporting requirement standpoint, you can issue a report in an oral format or a written format. And so there are times when I'll work with a client, but I'll say, you're not going to get anything. You know, we'll talk it through. I'll show you numbers. We'll like discuss it, but there's no report. There's no takeaway. That gets them to be like, oh, wait, I do need a takeaway. I do need a report. Well, then you have to, you know, you have to be compensated for the work that's involved.
Yes.
But I think it's a sticky area. And then for a lot of estate planning too, sometimes I have like investment or not investment, but financial planners that have clients that are, do I sell now? Do I not? You know, do I gift? And those are times where maybe a calculation of value would be helpful, but you have to still remember, are they going to come back in 2 years or a year and say, now I need a conclusion? And is it going to be drastically different? And are you really doing a lot of the work in the calculation of value that it is a conclusion of value? You know, like,
Right.
We're just here to create more questions in your life.
What are your thoughts,
and make you
Ron?
guess.
Well, it really is a learning curve. You'll find that ultimately, like you were just saying before, a lot of individuals have a subjective value and they try and push that on us. That's in essence, even when I do an SBA loan, you know, we have the LOI, we know what the purchase price is. And many times I'll say to the bank, I'll take the copy, I'm not going to read it until I'm done. But there are pressures from attorneys, from clients and other individuals. And I think we have to develop in the very beginning where we're coming from and present the knowledge and help them decide whether it is going to be a calculation or a conclusion. But then it's this comes into play, you know, well, I don't have that money. I was telling this story yesterday. I'm driving to the airport to come here. An attorney calls me and reminds me that I spoke initially with his client. And I said, and it's an oppression case. And he says, well, the client doesn't have much money because of his friends who pushed him out. And I said, he's going to need money, you know, and that's where it's going to begin. And he asked me, what is the normal list of items that I'm going to need? And I said, 5 years of financials, tax returns with depreciation schedule and articles and, you know, the whole list to give me an idea because he wants to know of a cost. And I said,
but you said an interesting thing. You know, I do this with clients too. They'll come and they'll have a number in their head. I'm like, don't tell me the number.
Yeah.
Do not tell me the number. Don't give me the prior things, because I think that that is also a way that you solidify that your position wasn't created based on where you knew their position was. And I wouldn't say all the time, because mostly business owners think their business is worth way more than it's actually worth. But there are a lot of times where if they're somewhat rational and you come in with the number and you're at 650 and they were at 7 or 5 or somewhere in that range, they're like, oh, we were at the same place. You know, like it immensely builds that confidence in you, but it also kind of cements that relationship that you got it right. You know.
but there is no right. Okay. The numbers lead us where they're going to lead us. Don't you agree?
No. I don't believe there's a right or a wrong. I believe that there is a range of reasonable value given reasonable assumptions.
Well, that's why we can decide on a number, or we could give them a range if it's close from the different methodologies within approach. But you can't sit here and tell me any number that we come up with is exactly right. It isn't.
I do a lot of litigation. My number is right. I have to say it's right. No, I agree. I agree.
Okay. Yes.
I just.
We come to a number based on all the hard work that we do. It's important to emphasize that we are in a specialty. and that we are offering a service, and ultimately the value that we come up with and all the presentation is a prospectus for a discussion, be it if for litigation or just for a casual buy sell.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the number, and I said it yesterday, anytime that I release a report or a number, I'm assuming that the client knows somebody who is a valuation person and or has done a valuation, right? Or a CPA that has done something. And I assume that somebody is going to look at it and pressure test it or look at mine. What I'm saying is that number is right. I have to defend my position in the number,
Absolutely.
not where somebody else is kind of telling me to go. But I think if you enter the arrangement with the client or the attorney saying, hey, guess what? I'm in control here. And sometimes that's a difficult discussion, but I don't take a check until they understand who's in control. And then if they can't come to that agreement with that, this has to be my opinion, then I'm probably not the right person for them.
Oh,
and
I
I'll
agree.
kind of shift them, shift them to my frenemy.
Oh, many times I've had an attorney tell me how he wants me to prepare the valuation. And I said, I'm not the person for you.
Right.
It's not going to be done that way.
Right.
And if you get them to calm down, ultimately, a couple of times I've been able to win the engagement. But there are outside forces that are always coming against us. We have to be able to stand up for our process, the time that it takes, the lengths that we go to prepare it. I constantly teach, you can't leave it here. You got to make sure you have it on paper. I would say the first 4 years, I tried to become the best technical writer that I could become. Because it's important that, in essence, this is our testimony. We don't know in some cases whether it's going to end up in litigation or not. And in some courts, I'm not allowed to even add to what I've written down. So you have to make sure that your report is thorough and understandable.
Well, and that gets us to some of kind of the session that you presented, which was a lot of the balance sheet analysis and the asset approach and looking at how to determine excess assets. And I think that there was a lot of strong debates in that particular program. But the thing is, all of us have unique or different or ways that we look at everything in evaluation. And again, there's no right or wrong, but it's how do you defend that position and does it make sense? And I think coming to these types of conferences, it gives you an idea of how other people are doing. Because sometimes we work in a vacuum. If you're like the only valuation person at your firm, or you're starting out, or you've been working solo for a tremendous amount of time, it's great to network with all of these people because you can pick their brain because they'll reciprocate, right? But B is that you start to learn and how somebody is looking at different. It doesn't mean that you have to agree with everything. Like we talked about it. We don't agree with everything that you may do, and you might not agree with everything that I do, but we have to be able to individually.
That's only because you're wrong.
I told you before, I am right. But I think that that's the piece, is that it pressure tests your own methodology, and you say, maybe, I've watched Garth present information on how he does valuations. I've watched you, and I always take pieces of it and say, maybe I wasn't as thorough in that thought process as I could have been. What additional layers can I add? Because in some of this process, once you create these, whether you use a software, whether you use your own spreadsheets, once you start to create these different modules and these different ways of, you always have them. And now you have a bank of ways that you can look at things, and some of them are appropriate for certain clients and some of them aren't.
Oh, very true.
And, like yesterday, the final thing that we kind of went through was cost of capital. Garth shared, and you even offered in your presentation to share your spreadsheets. These are spreadsheets that you guys have spent a ton of time creating.
Years.
And you're like, here, if it can help you, then I'm more than willing to share it. And maybe they meld it to whatever they're doing. But that is part of, I think, really participating in the NACVA and saying, you're not my competition. Like, how can we work together to make us all better and help you be more efficient and effective? Because then you are making money in the fees that you're creating and providing.
Well, I think it's important, and I've been saying this for many years, that I think the biggest change that we've had in the last 10 years is the proliferation of individuals coming out with software and saying, oh, this is going to make your life better. This will get you the number. But unfortunately, we don't know what's behind how they get that number. And my presentation yesterday, I think you would have to admit, I'm trying to utilize the value of the financials that I have before me and come to conclusions with reasonableness that I can present and say, I know how I got this number without, because there's rare occasions when an attorney wants to try and beat us up and say, okay, you use that software. Do you know how the software did this or did that? And how did you attain the company specific risk or the buildup or whatever?
Yeah.
When it comes to a certain process, if you're better able to understand thoroughly the trending and the numbers before us, it really tells a story.
Well, and I think from a software perspective or building your own internal spreadsheets, I think that my perspective is that we utilized software for probably 5 to 10 years at the beginning of my career in various accounting firms that I worked at. To me, it really helped kind of know when you got something wrong, when you're taking a cash flow and you're not matching it with the proper cap rate, when you don't know what you don't know. Those types of softwares really come in and kind of help you understand, like, oh, I got that a little wrong. And then you can start to create, like, what additional analyses do you do from the balance sheet perspective or the income statement perspective. And then eventually you start to build maybe your own ways of looking at things, but the software is a lot of times very integral in the beginning. And some people continue to use it because it's updated, it keeps you fresh. And
don't read my first 5 years or my first 20 reports. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, we all say that.
When I go back and look, but I am a software person, but I am constantly updating my templates. I'm constantly adding my own Excel files for different tests that apply every now and then. I need the financial statements in every one. So there's other things that I only use time to time. I'm not always evaluating personal goodwill. I'm not always, but I've built lots of things for that I can plug in. I've got reports for different situations. Again, some of them I'll use that piece once every 2 or 3 years. Some of them I use in 75% of my reports. For me, it allows me to focus on the numbers and what's going on. And then if it fits the situation, I put it in the software. If it really doesn't fit, I go build a new model that I didn't have, like you said, I didn't have available for later. So for me, I just view it as a tool that allows me to focus on what I'm supposed to be focusing on, which are certainly the numbers, but also all the soft things going on. Is this a cyclical business? Are these owners capable of continuing to expand, or between the owners and the management team, are we where we're going to just flatline, which could be perfectly fine, but it's going to bring a different result than if they're going to keep growing at 15% a year.
Well, and I
those
think
issues.
Developing some templates using software, using Excel, however you want to develop it, and templates for engagement letters, for reports and stuff, at some point, it really is good to look at how do you incorporate lower cost people if you're on your own. How do you get an intern? How do you get somebody that's more of a data entry? Because if your billable rate is somewhere between $200 to $500, and you can hire somebody that you're paying $15 to $25 an hour, that it can at least input the financial data, can start the report, even just filling in, if you have a template report, starting to fill in the ownership factors. I have them write the history and all of that fun stuff that I have no interest in writing. And, you know, things like that. I think that's where you start to leverage, you know, you have somebody at $15 an hour and they spend 20 hours on a report and you charge out at $300 an hour. That's 2 of your hours, you know, that they've spent 20 hours helping you. And so I think that that's how you can leverage people in some respect to help you become more efficient and make more money in the process.
But I'll give you a 180 of that. I've gone to recently, past couple of years, I'll give the client a not to exceed. So I know if I'm charging them $9,500, I end up spending, even if I'm spending $12,000, $13,000 a time, I'm a big boy, I'm going to accept it. But this way, they have an understanding that it's not going to, I'm going to come back later and say, uh-oh, I spent more time. But contrary to what you're saying, I enjoy putting in the data into the software because it gets me really close to what's going on. And I begin to formulate the relationship as to the trending in the company. Understanding what the history of it is, what the makeup of it is. So since I'm now back again, for 13 years, I was in a large firm. And I'll put it nicely, they retired me in September. I said, okay, I'll go back on my own, and everything I get is now mine.
Yeah.
But I like that ability to be able to be that personal with the data. And
I totally understand. And I think that a lot of people in the valuation community agree, like there's something about putting the data in, then you know where it's all at. I think I have like ADD or something. And when I start to enter data, I'm like, what's going on over there? And then I'm like, I've only entered 1 year. So for me, there is a beauty in having somebody else enter the data because I still have to check it. And so I still check it to whatever the information is and I still get to see it, but it's already there. And I have them pull the research, you know, all of the databases that you pay for, go in and pull all the research, you know, and even start the reports. And to me, that's what's helped me kind of remain focused on getting the business and presentation to the client and really just having to be in that analysis piece, which I really love more. But I think there's always different ways of doing it. And then you have to find the right person that has some capacity to understand, you know, a lot of times how to convert a tax return into
that's extremely important.
You know,
because you have to look at page 3 or 4 in the M1 and find out what the reported income was.
Right.
And you have to be able to go from page 1 until you get to what the reported income
so what I've
is.
done is with each of the people that I've ever hired, either from, you know, a subcontractor, when I teach them how to do stuff, I record it. So either on a screen recording, I capture my voice, I capture the screen, and I walk them through the process, even to pull the research. How do you pull the deal stats? How do you pull it down? How do you put it into the Excel? And I record it. And then I get somebody like, you know, I have a new intern coming on board. I'm like, guess what you get to do? You get to go watch these 5 videos. Here's this one project. You see if you can do all of those different tasks. And if you have questions, your questions are going to be an hour of my time, as opposed to me now teaching the next person. Because when you have people that are kind of at a lower wage, they're going to come in and out. You know, they're going to do something new. They're going to go do something. So you create that training that now you can have somebody else come in and it's not taking your time each and every time, which I think gets you more interested in working and having kind of a team help you do it, because you can really make, I think, more efficiencies in it.
And Melissa, on that note, assuming the time on the bottom of our monitor is correct, that note for me probably just paid for the conference, because I always struggle with how do I delegate and and really to me, delegation is how do I train somebody to do these technical things, and that's awesome. And I've got Zoom now kind of to do some other things like that, but not training. So thank you for that phenomenal tip. Folks, this is sort of a sample. Tomorrow, at 7 o'clock, because we love it early, on the Around the Valuation World show here. We're going to have Roger Gabrowski. So we're going to hear at least from one of the certainly noted authorities on capitalization of earnings and build up. And we're going to hear from
Cost
him
to
on some of
capital.
those, what cost to capital. We're going to hear about those issues. Then we're going to have some videos from some of the wonderful instructors about their programs that are going to be on later today. It's a wonderful show or a wonderful conference planned for today and tomorrow. So we'll have those and a little bit of conversation about each of them. This is Around the Valuation World. Pretty much we are on the third Monday for 2 hours. As Brian said, it's free to watch it. What Brian left off, of course, is if you want credit, there's a charge. What I will say is there's a very significant discount related to the conference. So if you would like what we think is a very good program to kind of keep you current, we cover a variety of topics over the course of the year. We get people like Roger on the show. It's a very good show. I would suggest you do, if it's not in your package already, you sign up at the conference or in the next couple days and get that discount. Thank you all so much for listening, for being up early and listening this morning. Have a wonderful day at the conference, and we will see you tomorrow morning.